Hello, love bugs. This is your girl JB, and today I want to talk about emotional abuse and domestic violence. Let me first start by saying that I am not a doctor and I am not a psychologist. What I am is a peer support specialist. That means I was trained in the state of Arizona to help and be a support system for people in the behavior health field and also people recovering from substance abuse or have issues with substance abuse. And I'm also recovering from my own trauma and abuse in my life. So these videos are made with the purpose of people in the mental health field, recovery field, domestic violence, substance abuse um, to add to be as a guide and a help and support system for other people like myself that have been through these type of uh, issues with abuse, trauma, neglect, and all these different things that can affect us emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and also our psyche. So I looked this up from Psychology Care and Health Center today. It says 70% of adults in the US have experienced some type of traumatic event at least once in their life. So for me, and I always like to talk from my personal experience and the things that I've been through. For me, I was in a very abusive, toxic relationship for over 12 years. And I didn't really feel like I had a lot of support. I didn't really know who to talk to. And I really, for years, did not even believe that I was being abused or there was really a big issue. I just knew that, things were not right for a very long time in my relationship, but I didn't really know how to get any help. So I was not physically abused in my personal relationship. There was times where there things became physical, but it wasn't on a regular basis where I was physically abused. The abuse that I sustained in my relationship was more verbal and more psychological, financial abuse, things like that. And there's different types of abuse. So you can be financially abused, and I'll give you an example of that because my ex-husband was the breadwinner and I was a stay-at-home mom, and I did not have my own source of income, so to speak, or generated my own income. So I was pretty much completely and utterly dependent on him financially to support me. And there will be times that there was a lot of infidelity in my marriage, and there will be times where he would do certain things and then he would buy me stuff, and that was his way of kind of like mending or amending whatever was done. There was times where he would tell me he's moving out at the end of the month, and I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm leaving. And so that would put me in a position of feeling like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to take care of myself? How am I going to take care of the kids? There was times that I was told he would take the children from me, which he did, and just different things that I experienced that I was told from a verbal perspective. And let me be 100% honest and transparent. There was also times that I said things to him too that was probably very unhealthy and toxic as well. So the whole relationship was very unhealthy and very toxic, and a lot of abuse, uh, emotional, psychological abuse. So it took me years to get away from that situation. And people on the outside, I had a few people that could see that the relationship was not healthy, that were kind of close to me and knew me. And they would tell me, this is not a good situation, you need to get away. But then I would rationalize it as, well, it's not that bad. And, I'm not being hit, so it's okay. And, it could be a lot worse. And, well, what am I going to do if I leave? I won't be able to take care of myself. So I might as well stay. And I like nice things, and he buys nice things for me, so I'll be all right. So that was the way I rationalized it at that time. And that was how I stayed. And I was very afraid to leave because I felt like, you know, if I leave, what am I going to do? I did not feel like I had a support system. And for the most part, I really felt like when I did start trying to tell people a little bit, like, hey, I'm not in a good situation, I didn't really feel like people really believed me. I felt like I was, being told I was a drama queen, I was being dramatic, I wanted attention. So I didn't really feel like people really believed or understood that I was actually in a situation, in a relationship that was not healthy for me or the children, and I needed to get out. And what kind of promoted me actually leaving for good and getting out of the situation and not coming back was actually a neighbor had called CPS on us. And from there, someone came out to the home, and they, from the report, and asked me and the children questions. And based off of what we said, we were told that we had to leave the home. And we left the home. And at the time, I had someone at the church I was going to at that time put me and the children in a hotel. And we stayed in the hotel for a few days. And then we were mandated to get a restraining order against him so that we could return back to the home, and which I did do. And after that, kind of started a chain of events where we had to go to court. It started the process of me getting a divorce, and all those different things kind of was a chain event that happened. But let me say that was a very tedious process. It was very stressful. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of support. And even when I went to court with documentations from Child Protective Services and different things that had happened in our relationship, different times that the police was called out and things like that, it was still hard for me to really have people believe me because I had the diagnosis, I had the diagnosis of being bipolar at the time. So basically they just looked at it as, oh, well, she's just probably symptomatic, or she's overreacting, or, well, she has a mental illness diagnosis. So I still really didn't get the support that I need in the very beginning. It was very difficult and very challenging for me to get the help that I needed with leaving that situation and leaving that relationship. And even after I did leave, I did sustain a lot of challenges. I was homeless for a long time. I couch surfed, my kids, I ended up, losing them. In court, I had custody, but physically I wasn't able to care for them. And so I went through a lot of challenges after my divorce and separation. And then I also went through the emotional trauma of not being in this relationship anymore. Even though it was unhealthy, I still was trying, like, maybe I should go back. Maybe if we get back together, things can get better. Maybe he'll change, or maybe I can change. And so there was this constant need, almost an obsession, for me to try to mend and try to fix things and make things work, and going back. And it was just this emotional, I was just emotionally addicted to that situation, to that relationship. So it took me a long time to really break free. Once I physically got away and broke free and I wasn't in that situation anymore, it took me years to still build my self-confidence, to still feel like a sense of self-worth, to be able to feel strong enough to take care of myself, to take care of my children, to be mentally and emotionally stable, because I was torn down and just really abused for so long. I just didn't really have a good sense of self-worth. So that was my story. And I also stayed in domestic violence shelters with the children. Like, I would leave. Like I said, it was over some years that I really tried to understand that I was really not in a healthy situation. I would leave and then I would come back. So I would leave and take the kids and go stay in the shelter, but then I would come back. So then it made it look like, I wasn't, like I was making it up and I really wasn't in harm's way because I would keep going back, which is normal when you're in those type of situations to really break free and get out of the situation. It takes time, and it's very difficult to do that. But that was my situation from being, I say, more emotionally abused, more than physically. But if you're in a situation where you're physically abused and you're being physically harmed and physically hit, then that is a situation that you should get out of immediately, because it's only going to escalate and get worse, and the abuse will only get worse if you're in that type of domestic violence situation. And domestic violence, the interesting thing about domestic violence that most people don't know is that domestic violence can go both ways. So a woman can be a victim of domestic violence, but a man can also be a victim of domestic violence as well. It says more than 40% of domestic violence victims are men. So most of the time, men are not going to say like, hey, I'm a victim of domestic violence, because the concept and the theory in our society is that the man is the more dominant and he's stronger. But sometimes if a woman is violent to a man, she could be hitting him or trying to destroy his property or hurt him in some type of way. And then if the police is called out, if he hits her back, the police is called out, he's going to be the one to go to jail, or she could be provoking him to hit her so she can call the police and he can go to jail, and then he has that on his record as someone that was violent and physically hitting her. So it can go both ways, and it's a very sensitive and delicate topic for men, because a lot of times if a man says, hey, I'm being physically abused, most of the time people will not believe them, or there is no shelters or a place for a man to go from suffering from domestic violence. But it is common that man can be a victim of domestic violence as well, because some men will not hit the woman back, or not that they're not supposed to, but they won't engage in it. So they will be victims where the woman is more aggressive and will hit them physically and pick up things and hit them with and destroy their property, and they don't really feel like they can get out because maybe they don't want to lose their children, or maybe she's the one that is providing for them financially and he doesn't feel like he will be able to take care of himself. So it can go both ways, and it's not gender specific. So anyone could really be a victim of domestic violence. And if you're in the state of Arizona and you are a victim of domestic violence and you want to get away, I want to show you that there are safe places. If you can see this right here, QT is a place that's safe for runaways, sex trafficking, and kidnap. It's a safe place. If you go to QT and you tell them that you're a victim of domestic violence, they have an actual room where they could take you in and you can wait there. They'll call the police, or they'll call different shelters and things like that for you, to help you get away from that situation if that's the case. And this is in the state of Arizona. And also, if you're a victim of domestic violence and you're trying to get away and you don't know where to go or what to do or who to call, there is a hotline, and the number is 1-800-799-7233. Once again, that telephone number is 1-800-799-7233, and that is a national domestic violence hotline number. The first thing is to find help and find a support system, someone that's going to help you get away from that situation. But if you're in a domestic violence situation, you need to get away. It's not healthy. You deserve better. You're worth more. You're worth better. Until next time, this is your girl JB. Peace and blessings.